While the entire country is focused on the controversial ICE operations in Minnesota, an immigration enforcement bill for Indiana has cleared the Senate. We'll talk about that and other issues, including improving school lunches and the Chicago Bears of Indiana. All that and more, including your questions and comments right now on Prime Time. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Prime Time. I'm your host, Ed Leon. The General Assembly is moving forward on bills that address everything from empowering the governor to deploy a military police force to a gambling casino in Northeast Indiana. Here to discuss those issues and much more is Senator Sue Glick from Indiana Senate District 13, and from House District 80, the minority leader of the Democratic Caucus, Phil GiaQuinta. Welcome to Prime Time, guys.
Thank you.
So I really want to start with this immigration thing, SB 76. It's an enforcement bill that expands the necessity for local governments to cooperate on enforcement issues related to immigration. Look, can you explain that a little bit? What is this cooperation that's being enforced?
Well, I think what the intent of the bill is, and I don't speak for the author, but the intent is to make sure Indiana law enforcement, the local law enforcement, is up to speed on what they can and cannot do, what expectations there are. It's unfair for local law enforcement to be thrust into a federal issue without proper training and skilling them up to deal with the federal government and what the rules are in terms of release. Many of these individuals come into contact with law enforcement for minor offenses, and they, under the bill, as I understand it, and under federal law, they have to run them through the identification systems, check their status, if you will. And if, in fact, there's a detainer form or they do not have a recognized status, then they have to go further with the finding out what their status actually is. And for some people, that's very difficult because they might not have the papers. They've moved around some, and they don't, carry the papers with them. But if they're not a citizen, I think it's pretty much an idea that, they should have the papers available to them or readily available. So local law enforcement it's more, the reason I voted for the bill in the Senate was to make sure that our local people have the knowledge they need in order to enforce the law.
But doesn't that draw local enforcement deeper into the federal operation, maybe in taxing resources and putting them in a situation where they're not really fully trained?
Well, and that's the intent of the bill, is to make sure they are trained. As far as being drawn in, they already are. They are required to make some of those inquiries in regard to the arrest, and especially if it's a serious or violent offense. They have to check warrants, active warrants, and other issues with their NCIS and their NCIC computers to make sure that the individual they're dealing with is the person who was identified by that name and Social Security number or tax ID number. So it's a protection as much for the law enforcement as it is for the individual.
Anything to add to that, Phil?
Well, that bill will be up on second reading on Monday, and so there'll be some amendments. I know that there were some changes in the House committee. I also know that the House sponsor has an amendment, I think, to almost take it back to look like what the Senate version of it. So we'll kind of have to see. I know there'll be some amendments on our side with regards to the responsibility of campus police, hospital police, what they're allowed to do.
Right, because the bill penalizes departments if they don't comply or if they don't join in the enforcement efforts. So that's kind of new territory, it seems.
Yeah, and like I said, we're just kind of getting into this now. There'll be more debate on Monday for us.
Okay. By the way, I just want to remind our folks that you can join in on the conversation. Our phone lines are open right now for your questions and comments at 260-969-2720. You can also text. It's real easy. It's another number for text. It's 969-2730. 888-283-1030. And if you text, please give us your name and where you're texting from. Sort of an adjacent bill is HB 1343. And this is the one that allows the governor to deploy the National Guard as a military police force. In light of Minnesota, what's going on there, does this seem like it's necessary? Doesn't the governor already have the right to employ the National Guard in emergency situations?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the situations have been really, it's in cooperation with local governments, particularly in flooding and things like that, emergencies that we've seen. This would basically just allow the governor just to send the National Guard into some certain situations. I personally just think that it should be in cooperation with local mayors and say, either we can, handle it with ourselves, and maybe it'd be best just to let our already professionally trained police handle the situation, or if they want to, go ahead and ask for help from the National Guard. So, but that's not what the bill says. It basically just kind of gives this governor, any other future governor, just go ahead and send in the National Guard. And I think that could potentially conflict with what a mayor may be doing on the local level. And the other issue too is that we had a lot of discussion as to how much training has the National Guard had in some of these situations where, police are that's their job on a day-by-day basis. They're always constantly talking about getting, updated on the latest and greatest techniques and all those things, whereas the National Guard really isn't fully engaged on a day-by-day basis, and we'll just kind of see where that goes in the Senate.
Right, but isn't that what people are seeing in Minnesota? Is that here's a force that is maybe not fully trained for the missions that they're out doing?
Well, the National Guard bill we felt that it was in pretty good shape. When we were looking at it in the Senate, we required them to take training very similar to Law Enforcement Training Academy, so they knew the constitutional rights of the individuals they were involved with. If you're in the United States of America, you are protected by the Constitution of the United States. You have to remember the National Guard people can be 18, 19 years old, whereas law enforcement in Indiana has to be 21 in order to be a fully serving officer. So we want to make sure that we don't turn people loose who have not had the training, who are not aware of the situations they're going to be involved in. We train these young people in the National Guard for various capacities, but they're trained to fight wars. And what we're dealing with are immigration issues. It's a different kind of training, but they need to know what they can do and what they can't do in terms of the protection of the rights of the individuals. And we don't want to escalate situations beyond what they should be or what they could be. Right.
I think that's what many people are reacting to is the kind of the perception that there's an over-militarization of our cities.
Exactly. And I don't think anyone wants to see that. We want to make sure that we don't turn young people loose in a situation that they're not ready for. Law enforcement spends a lot of time on the various situational reactions that they have. They're trained over time to react in terms of what those triggers are by the individuals involved. We don't want to put people in a position to react that they're not qualified to do. That's not good for the state of Indiana. It's certainly not good for the individuals involved.
Right.
There's if I can real quick, back in I think the early 90s, Governor Evan Bayh at the time sent state troopers up and to Gary at the request of the mayor of Gary. They were working in tandem and the partnership there, because there were some things that were getting out of control, and the illegal drugs and whatnot. And so I think that's an example, a good example of actually how the state, in cooperation with local government, because this was a request of the mayor, that the state can be helpful.
Right.
And that was something that happened, I remember vividly, back in the early 90s.
Well, that's already in place, right?
Yes.
And so do we need this law?
Some people don't think we do, and there is some, and we don't want to get in over our skis, if you will. Reaction in Minneapolis is a perfect example. people who weren't ready or weren't qualified to deal with the situations, overreacted, it appears in some cases. We don't want to put our military people in that. That's not the role they're preparing for. We need them for emergencies. We've had situations with flooding and tornadoes, those kinds of emergencies. Sometimes we need additional help
Absolutely.
for local law enforcement. Let's skill them up for what they really need to be, and let's not, as you say, over-militarize. They militarize the National Guard. That's not their role.
We have a text that's come in from Hannah. I don't. It's adjacent to this. I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, but the question is, what authority will local law enforcement have against ICE if they are not following local laws? Like, do they need warrants? How will they recognize peaceful protests?
They should.
Yeah.
The First Amendment hasn't gone away. People do have a right to protest, and as long as it's peaceful and it's not threatening, that's where the lines are blurring in some of these situations that have arisen in other states. I would hope that in Indiana we won't approach those types of situations.
Yeah.
And if we do, that our law enforcement, local law enforcement, will react accordingly. The Indiana State Police has a fine record of responding and being able to discern the difference between what's threatening and what is just a peaceful demonstration.
All right.
Just real quick, totally agree with Sue.
Yeah.
That really the best outcome on all these situations is when folks are cooperating together. I'm talking about the different agencies where they're cooperating and working side by side in tandem to get the best results. So that's if one agency just going in alone, like John Wayne, we're going to handle it ourselves without any cooperation or communication with the local government, then you're going to have disasters like you've seen in Minnesota. So folks need to work together.
All right, let's move on to something that is going to affect Northeast Indiana. Phil, I think you're involved in this bill, House Bill 1038, the casino gambling bill. Talk to us about where that's at.
Well, let me take you back just a little bit, maybe 30 years. But there were referendums that went out there, and Switzerland County, I forget where Rising Sun is located.
I think it's Switzerland.
Yeah, they were one of the first counties to pass a referendum, and at the time, remember, we had the boats, they had to go back out on the water to gamble, and then we had dockside gambling, then land-based casinos, and so on. Well, over the course of time, we've seen competition from not only Michigan, Firekeepers, but Toledo, Ohio, and then of course Cincinnati, Ohio. But the casinos that have opened up have caused great competition for the state of Indiana. And Rising Sun is a small area, and they in the last, I'd say the last 5 to 7 years, have inquired about possibly moving. They at one point were looking to go to Vigo County and Terre Haute, but we had 2 licenses up in Gary. Again, they were seeing competition from Chicago, so one of the 2 licenses there moved to Terre Haute, so that took care of that area. And frankly, there's really only one area left in the state of Indiana that really doesn't have a land-based casino, if you will, and that's Northeast Indiana. So what the bill basically says, it includes Steuben County, DeKalb, Allen, and now Wayne, which is Richmond, and would allow the gaming agency, the Gaming Commission, to examine which of those four counties would be the best place for this particular license, which is in Rising Sun, Indiana, to transfer to.
And it's going to move. It's going to move here or somewhere local. What is this a referendum on the ballot, or is it going to the Gaming Commission?
There was an amendment by Representative Smaltz to put in referendum language. So it would be up to the county, each county, to decide whether or not they would like to have a referendum on gaming. So it's, when I look back at the history of gaming and where anyone, as I started out with this little story here, Rising Sun was one of the first ones via a referendum that, they passed it. And most of these areas that have casinos have passed with some kind of referendum.
Sure. And did I read correctly that whoever wins the contract has to invest $500 million into the casino?
That's where it stands right now. That's where the number is. It's it's a high number, but it would also probably guarantee that you're going to have a pretty nice facility.
Sure.
With just not only gaming, but hotels and everything that comes with it. Probably located, on 469 or 69. If it's not in Allen County, it's up the road a ways so that folks can travel from other parts of the state and go to the casino.
And so now the counties will have to present their best plans?
Well, it hasn't passed yet, so we'll see what happens. I mean, it's over in the Senate. We'll just kind of have to see where it goes. But you're right, exactly. They would put forth their bid, their proposal, and the Gaming Commission would have the final say. Again, they're going to look at a referendum and see who's if that's the steps and if that's the way the county wants to go, and see kind of based upon that where we are. I've heard from both sides of the issue on when it comes to gaming, and I always like to remind people that, for example, in Allen County, we have an off-track betting. We have gaming here out in, New Haven, where you can bet on sports, you can bet on the horses, Sue and I can right now bet on. Sue can bet on how long I'm going to keep talking if she picks up her phone and goes to.
Well, there's a long track record of what these casinos do in a community, right? For the good and the bad, in terms of economic development, and as well as bringing maybe some social ills into the community. Is that is Northeast Indiana resistant, do you think, Phil, to this? We all try to do our homework. I think the mayor of New Haven last year, when we were talking about moving the casino potentially up to New Haven, I mean, he went to several casinos in Indiana. He visited a few that were out of state. He came back, his report was he was not seeing an increase in crime or these sorts of social ills that you've talked about. In fact, the fact that you have both Wayne County and Steuben County for sure that have appeared down in at the Statehouse hoping to get to be the winner of this, if you will. They do not worry about some of those things that they've heard. Yeah, we'll just have to kind of see where it goes. So realistically, if this passes, what would be a timeline? I think people would be interested in understanding what would be a timeline to where a casino that they can walk into.
Well, if there's a referendum, it'd probably go in the fall of November of 2026, and then however long it takes to build, I don't know. I'm sure that it could be 2028 or something like that.
Yeah, I can imagine it would take a long time.
Yep.
All right, let's move into another kind of unique economic development issue, and that is the Chicago Bears are looking for a new home, and Indiana is stepping up and saying, "Hey, we'll take the Bears." What are your thoughts on public money for a stadium and to get a stadium going in Indiana?
It's not just the football game. All right, anyone who has a large sporting facility has other attractions that go there as well. Certainly the Bears have been a draw in northern Indiana, certainly northwestern Indiana for many, many years. A lot of us were Bears fans long before we were Colts fans because that was the team. And it can't hurt the Gary area, if you will, to have that kind of economic development, that infusion of hotels and restaurants, that sort of thing. The city of Chicago has got to step up at the plate if they want to keep them. It appears that Arlington Heights, Illinois has said we don't really want to change the nature of our community to accommodate a large facility like a new stadium. I don't think downtown Chicago wants to lose Soldier Field and the attractions that are there. But Mayor Melton, who used to be a state senator, is very strong in his advocacy. He wants to see the Bears come there, and he's willing to make the investment. It would be an economic boon to that area, absolutely.
I think in many other cities, the public has been reticent to, put public money towards the ambitions of billionaires, which are these owners are billionaires. Any thoughts on that?
You say that, but just like the casino, there is money that will come with, people who do the construction, people who invest in things like the hotels and the other venues. Steuben County has a very robust tourism industry now because of the lakes, because of the state park at Pokagon. They have an influx of summer people that is tremendous, and even, with a casino that might turn into a year-round venue, if you will. But just dropping a footnote on the casino, I have an amendment for the bill that makes the referendum mandatory. So the people of Allen County, the people of DeKalb County, the people of Steuben County and Wayne County would have it on the ballot. They could express themselves. If a community or a county is going to invest that kind of money, then I think the electorate should have the right to go forward and say we want it or we don't want it. And I think it should be mandatory. It's on the ballot so that it's just not a decision made by just the investors, just the billionaires, if you will.
Right.
But all the people are going to have to live with the consequences of any kind of facility like this.
Sounds like common sense. I'm hearing yes bears to you. Bears?
Well, I know the Speaker was in Hammond yesterday, so Speaker of the House, the bill's going to come to him, in fact, we will be having those discussions among our caucus members, but the members in Northwest Indiana are very excited about the potential there. I think it's getting closer and closer. I think what once thought is something that was never going to happen is really becoming more and more possibly likely. So we'll see. The big question I think is of state dollars that would go to Indianapolis, if you will, or come to state government versus local taxes and how much they're going to put in up there in Lake County and the surrounding counties as well will kind of be the main question, how this all gets played out. But, and I haven't really seen, I've kind of heard about renderings of what the stadium would look like. There could be, retractable roof and those sorts of things, which means Super Bowl, Final Four, all those things that would come with it. So, and the development around there too, like Sue said, with hotels and things like that for that area. So
I'm hearing go Bears from you too, sir. All right, we have a text from James, and this is about nuclear power. If everything passes, I don't know that I'm familiar with the bill that James is mentioning. Are either of you have thoughts on what this is about?
Well, no. I mean, there was some legislation that I know passed. We passed last year. It takes a long time to build
these reactors.
It does, but I think there is a lot of positive energy, if you will, with regards to nuclear, and as far as it's clean and energy and things like that, and it's potentially a way to go. But it does take a while to. And he might be referring to some of these small smaller reactors that we've talked about in the past. So. Okay. It'll take a while to build those.
We've advocated for a long time to see the small modular reactors. Most people think of nuclear energy as the size of 3 Mile Island or the Cook plant, but in this day and age, you're talking about small modular reactors that would power a city the size of Fort Wayne or some of the smaller cities, a Goshen or an Elkhart. Much smaller in scale, much different construction, not a total, an implosion would not be the same danger to the surrounding area. Think more in terms of...
And they're safer now anyways.
Well, think of the size of a nuclear reactor on board an aircraft carrier or in some of those areas. Crane, the Naval Service Weapons Center down in southern Indiana, is in desperate need of more energy because of their expansions down there. And we've been talking with them because, frankly, the United States Naval Academy graduates about 50 to 75 nuclear engineers every year. It would be far easier for the military because of national security to get the licenses in a short order and construct such a facility there in an area which is in desperate need of energy than it would be for a city or town in around the state of Indiana. So that might be a place to start, and I think if it was successful there, more people would be willing to consider it for local energy use.
All right, we're coming near the end of our time, but we have one comment from Dale. He says he's a retired person and he's seen an increase in his property taxes over the last few years. Is there anything help on the way for retirees with the rise of property taxes? I know that's a big question. Has any progress been made on some of the bills?
Sue, I'll let you take that one.
Well, this year will be the first that some of these the provisions of SB1 from last year, or SCA1, will kick into effect. It will have some impact on the cities and towns, and there are some provisions. It's up some of the deductions for the senior citizens, veterans, and groups like that. So he will not see them until this year. The really sad part is that it is not as significant as we had hoped, although there is some legislation coming across to us. We haven't seen it yet from the House. The real issue is whether or not in offsetting income loss to the municipalities, making it up on local income tax may offset some of the savings on property taxes. So people who own property are going to see some savings, but there may be local income taxes that will impact other people.
All right. I'm sure that's not the answer you wanted to hear, Dale, but they're working on it. All right. Well, listen, that's going to wrap us up. I want to thank you both for being here tonight. Sue Glick from Indiana Senate District 13, thank you, and Phil GiaQuinta, House District 80 and Minority Leader of the Democratic Caucus. I'm Ed Leon. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on Prime Time.
The preceding program on PBS Fort Wayne was made possible in part by
the Regional Chamber of Northeast Indiana advocates for world-class infrastructure, a competitive business climate, 21st century talent, and rural investment. One region, one voice. NEINadvocates.com. The Rogers Company has been conducting business in Northeast Indiana since 1944 as Rogers Markets and now as the Rogers Company with commercial property and real estate development. Pleased to support local not-for-profits and PBS Fort Wayne.
Funding for Prime Time on PBS Fort Wayne is provided by the First Source Foundation and the Knight Foundation.